Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our WWE show for the week. Let's jump right into it. First we're going to go through the so-so segments of the night. Basically the stuff that wasn't bad, wasn't good, it was just there. First we're going to talk about the opening segment with Triple H, Seth Rollins, Kane and Randy Orton. Basically setting up the matches for later on tonight, which has Kane, Rollins and Orton versus Cena and Ambrose. So I've said it before, I said it again, I think they fall in too much of a formulaic move and with these kind of opening segments. Just, to me, just silly. They need to think outside the box every now and again and open the show a little differently, in my opinion. Next up, we have Rusev versus Big E. Why would I care about this? They had a feud a few months ago. Big E never even looked like he had a chance of beating Rusev, so why would he have a chance now? And why would I care? Again, just a silly match. Even the crap afterwards with the American flag coming down, the soldier getting kicked. A little bit of cheapness to it. I seen there was a lot of complaints online about this. Folks, you gotta remember, it's all part of a show, which Big Show came out to defend the soldier. But the funny thing I find is the people that are complaining about doing stuff like attacking a soldier are the same ones, and I'm not promoting attacking a soldier. To me it was stupid. On the show-wise it was dumb. It didn't make sense. But to me, when they go outside the box and do something controversial like this, people complain. The same people that want them to go back to more Attitude Era storylines. Hate to tell you guys, but as someone that lived through the entire Attitude Era and watched pretty much every week, this was what the Attitude Era was about. Shocking storylines, shocking developments. Stuff done just to shock. And that's what that was. In the general sense of the show, I didn't care for it. It didn't make me angry. I knew the soldier was a plant. I knew that that's what they're going for. Just a silly thing on the show. Next up, we're going to go into our bad portions of the night. And the one thing I really didn't like was the Brie Bella versus Summer Rae match. I understand you're trying to build for Brie versus Nikki at the next pay-per-view at Hell in a Cell, but really it was just a bad match and I didn't like it at all, in my opinion. Well, the less I have to talk about it, the better I probably am. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go to our question of the week. The question of the week from last week was, what do you think about the fact that Brock Lesnar is not on the show or missing pay-per-views being the world champion? Now, before we get into my opinion, we're going to give you some of my friends. Some of our friends' opinions. Sorry about that, folks. A little bit of stuttering and standing right here. First up's from my cousin John. What's up, George and the Heel Heat Nation? I think they realized what they needed to get Orton involved in the pay-per-view because of the lack of the World Championship match. Now we have two great former champions going head-to-head. Everyone wanted Ambrose versus Rollins in SummerSlam. We got it. I say put Money in the Bank contract on the line. No holds barred, winner take all. We don't need to see Brock again until the new guys show they can main event. Okay, take the UFC for example. There are plenty of pay-per-views that don't have a heavyweight title matchup. They keep it divisional. Same here in the WWE. Let these guys build the world champion status. When Lesnar returns, the crowd that is drawn will be huge, as long as the opponent has established himself and the promos are perfection. It'll take a lot to get a legit victory over Brock, so I say no. It doesn't hurt the pay-per-view. It puts more focus on building up somebody worthy for a shot at that title. Rollins has no chance, but if the opportunity presents itself like we almost saw at the last pay-per-view, at this moment, that would be the only way the title leaves Lesnar. Doing it this way makes the world title matchup more desirable than it changing hands every other week or on pay-per-view. I mean, come on, man. If you want 15-time If you won it 15 times, that means you lost it 15 times as well. Next, please, NXT, NXT, NXT. I like what you did there, John. That's pretty funny. Next is from our good friend Steve Cat Manning. Not having Brock Lesnar wrestle at Hell in a Cell is kind of odd considering that we're in an era where the World Champion defends his belt at every pay-per-view. I like that the WWE is allowing other wrestlers to settle their feuds in main event matches, Ambrose versus Rollins, Hell in a Cell, while building other contenders for Lesnar, instead of seeing Cena in a title match on a constant basis. This way, when Brock does defend his belt on a pay-per-view, there's a lot more prestige to the match. Kudos to the WWE and Brock Lesnar. Next up's from our friend Joseph Hatcher. I am kind of mixed about about this, to be honest. Yes, I do think it's a good one. It's good in a way because it brings back prestige to the championship, and I don't think it's good too because some people might get mad over the fact that they did not watch the WWE network or order the pay-per-view if they still do order the pay-per-view. But overall, I think it's a good decision. Last but not least, from our friend Benjamin Me 19. Hey, Heel Heat, I think the lack of a champion on some pay-per-views is better. Brock is a huge draw. As a champion, he becomes a bigger draw, and as an absent champion, he will draw even more when he is there. As well as this, it gives the WWE the opportunity to have slow builds to and huge payoffs. Most importantly, we may see younger talent get pushed up the card, which would be great for their development. And maybe we see the IC strap in the main event. I'm thinking SummerSlam 92, which, if you guys don't remember, was Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog at the main event in Wembley Stadium. Probably one of the better SummerSlam matches, one of the better SummerSlams of all time. I'm with the consensus here. I think the fact that the belt isn't being hot-shotted and it's on what I consider probably the most, I don't know how to say this. How can I put this? It's not demeaning to everybody else. The most credible WWE champ there's ever been. Everything about Brock Lesnar is credible. He's a NCAA champion. He's a UFC champion. He's a multiple-time WWE champion. He was in the NFL. He played for the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL, albeit just in training. But the guy's a legit athlete, probably the likes of which no one's ever seen. Maybe Kurt Angle, Ernie Ladd, a couple other guys come to mind that have that legitimacy to them. Not saying that the guys in the WWE aren't legit athletes and probably some of the best athletes in the world, but John Cena doesn't have that background. John Cena can't say, I played for the New England Patriots. John Cena can't say, I won the Division I title in wrestling. That being said, I think it goes hand in hand. I think we need to go back. We're not in the Monday Night War anymore. The reason that the champions started coming up on Raw every week, if you look at the old Raws before Nitro came around, the champion wasn't on the show every week. They were on maybe once a month. If you go back even a little bit further to Wrestling Challenge and Wrestling Superstars, the Saturday morning shows, we seen Hulk Hogan maybe once a month, and that was in an interview. If you wanted to see Hulk Hogan face Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy, you had to order the pay-per-view to see him. He didn't wrestle on free TV. And the buzz it would generate, you'd pay to see him wrestle King Kong Bundy. You'd pay to see him on that rare Saturday Night Main Event appearance. You'd stay up. That would be something special, and the ratings would go through the roof. The point I'm trying to make is they need that. They need the World Championship to mean something. Like, I forget who said it, and I'm sorry, I just read them. But bouncing the belt back and forth helps no one. And I'll make a good example. Randy Orton, probably one of the best wrestlers of this generation. I think he's very great in the ring. I think he's overlooked. Does anyone think of him as one of the best champions of all time? He's a 12-time world champion. There's only 3 or 4 other guys that have had it more. Triple H, John Cena, and Ric Flair. They're the only guys that I can think of off the top of my head that have held more world championships than him. Do you think of him as an all-time great world champion? I surely don't. I think he's a good wrestler. I think he's one of the best this generation. Do I think he's a better world champion than Mick Foley, whose 3 title runs together last a month? No, I think Mick Foley is a better world champion. The prestige of the belt at that time meant a lot more. The prestige needs to come back into that belt, and into the Intercontinental belt, and into the U.S. title, and into the Tag Team title. There was a time where being the Intercontinental Champion or the Tag Team Champion was almost as important as being the World Champion. You knew that the Intercontinental Champion was a stepping stone away from being the World Champion. You knew that the Tag Team Champions were special. They were just like the World Champion, except in the Tag Team division. My point is, I think I'd like to see Brock on the pay-per-views at least, in my opinion, because I'm a strong believer. I guess it's been pounded in my head, the 30-day defense rule. I don't know, it's something weird that I have stuck in there. However, I'm okay with it. If he takes off these less important pay-per-views, wrestles once every 3 months, I'm okay with that. Wrestle SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, WrestleMania, the ones that we care about. The ones that the buy rates are huge anyway, the ones that he's going to be one of the big attractions. I like that idea. Build a contender. Have a #1 contenders tournament. Have the Intercontinental Champion be something that people like Seth Rollins strive for. People like Dolph Ziggler, who's carrying it right now, strives to be Intercontinental Champion. The fans don't care that he's not World Champion because he's an Intercontinental Champion, and that's almost as important. But we're going too far off on this. I enjoy it. I think it's a great thing. I think it's going to help build prestige back in a world title that's lost some over the years. Now, coming off of that, much like the surprise Rock appearance a few weeks back, we had a surprise appearance by Mick Foley, which got me to the question of the week for this week. We all know that Mick Foley had 3 characters that he would wrestle as: Cactus Jack, Mankind, and Dude Love. Which is your favorite of the 3 faces of Foley? Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Twitter, put it down where? Down there in the comments. And make sure to like and share and all that good stuff too. Now we're going to get into the good portion. The stuff I actually liked on the show. We had Sheamus and the Usos versus the Dust Brothers and The Miz, who substituted his stunt double, Damien Mizdow. And Damien Mizdow is the only reason I like this match. I thought he was great in the match. I thought we started to get that little bit of a break where we're going to see Mizdow separate from The Miz. As Mizdow gets more popular, The Miz will start getting more jealous. Mizdow gets the win with a roll-up. The fans go crazy. They gave him crap, and he's actually absolutely working. And I think the guy's an amazing talent. I think it's crappy what they did to him with the Hell, or not the Hell in a Cell, the Money in the Bank win, but he's being thrown turds, and he's shining up the turds and turning them into diamonds. And I like what they're doing. I know there's going to be an eventual split. Maybe Damien goes face. Who knows? But when it does happen, I think it's going to be a great payoff. Next up, we have AJ Lee versus Alicia. Paige's former BFF versus Paige's new BFF. Paige is accompanying Alicia to the ring. They get in a little bit on the outside, which was all a ruse just to distract AJ so Alicia could get the win. I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting. 3 of the better divas, in my opinion, all in one segment. How can you go wrong? Next up, we had the in-ring confrontation with Randy Orton and John Cena. They start talking about Brock Lesnar, which brings out Paul Heyman. Cena threatens to give Heyman the FU, or the attitude adjustment. He doesn't do it because he's the righteous man. Orton gives Cena the RKO out of nowhere, which I guarantee they just did that to try and capitalize on all the Vine videos going around of Orton. Then he gives one to Heyman as well, kind of reminiscent of the Stone Cold character in the Stone Cold Stunner. Maybe he's going to transform back into more of that anti-hero. I'd like to see it. Like I said time and time again, and I agree with JBL. If I was to make a wrestler from the ground up, he would look and act like Randy Orton. I think he's one of the best of this generation, in my humble opinion. Next up, we had the segment with Dean Ambrose and a mannequin of Seth Rollins, which brings out the real Rollins with Mercury and Noble, the new Stooges. We see them throwing the mannequin at each other, doing little things, which brings out Mick Foley. The surprise appearance we talked about a little bit ago. Now, if you've watched the show for any period of time, you know that I am an avid Mick Foley fan. There's nothing the man can do wrong, in my opinion. He's my absolute favorite wrestler. Love him to death. Anytime they put the Micker on my TV, it makes me smile more than anybody in wrestling history has ever done. I love the guy. He came out, he cut a classic Mick promo talking about the importance of Hell in a Cell. He took what was kind of a floundering, going nowhere promo, gave it some bite, gave it some importance, made more sense than both the guys were making. Tells them, I mean, it kind of was reminiscent of when Foley did the same thing with CM Punk a few years back. I love it. I more Foley every day, all day. I mean, I can't get enough of it. I love the man. I think he's the greatest. He's my absolute favorite. He's the most entertaining wrestler I've ever seen, in my opinion. He might not be the best in the ring, but he's the best at drawing that emotion out of the fans. Speaking of drawing emotion, we had a great matchup of Cesaro versus Dolph Ziggler. I like what they did with this. I like that Cesaro won with the uppercut. I'd like to see more wrestlers having varied winning ways to win. The way of the finishing maneuver, I think, is becoming passé. The more we get into a world where MMA is more and more popular, the more that we see, okay, we got someone that's a submission specialist, but in this match they kicked someone in the face and knocked him out. Or their special moves, the arm bar, but in this match they put him in a triangle choke. The more we get that, the more wrestling should incorporate some of that. You should have guys with multiple finishers. They should have a striking finisher, like the running knee that Daniel Bryan does, a submission finisher like the STF that Cena does, even though he doesn't do it that well. A finisher like the zigzag or the neutralizer, where it's a regular finisher. I think there should be multiple moves that a guy could use to finish a match. And I think they all should have a submission somewhere. Just my opinion. The more we get to see MMA rise in popularity, the more they should take some of the cues from that and bring it into wrestling. Because realistically, professional wrestling is supposed to be an extension of amateur wrestling. And MMA really is an extension of amateur wrestling. See what I'm saying? I think it would do them well to bring some of that in. Anyway, I like the idea that Cesaro wins with a strike. The uppercut, which are vicious looking, looks like it should finish somebody. I think they should do that more often. I think there should be surprise finishes. I think we should see stuff that you don't see, like that fast power slam that Randy Orton does. No one ever gets pinned by it, but every once in a while somebody should. Or, like the Usos when they do the super kicks. Nobody gets pinned by that super kick, but Shawn Michaels does the same move, and it kills a guy. See what I'm saying? There should be a little bit more of that element of, oh my God, this could end at any point. And I understand the basic concept of bringing a match and building it to the end, but there should be every once in a while. We're not talking about a pay-per-view main event that has to go 40 minutes. We're talking about matches on the show. Just as interesting as this was, it kept my interest level up. It surprised me. which is always good. Last but not least, we go into the main event, 2-on-3 handicap street fight. Cena and Ambrose versus Kane, Orton, and Rollins. The heels pick up the win. Randy Orton almost gets murdered by a table. Fights with the table on the outside. The cell drops. We see a lot of cool stuff, a lot of hype for the pay-per-view. At the end of the show, we see Seth Rollins standing on top of the cage, looking like Superman. Thought it was a great ending to what was actually a really good show, in my opinion, which I'm going to just roll right into the ratings for this one. Now we have a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 1's a Great Khali, 2's a Heath Slater, 3's a Stardust, 4's a Cesaro, 5's a Daniel Bryan. I'm teetering on this because I want to give it a 5 just for Mick Foley being there. But I'm going to take my Mick Foley fandom out of this and I'm going to give it a 4. A very solid show. It was a good show to sell the pay-per-view. They did a lot of good things. A little bit that was annoying, not too terrible on this in a whole. I thought this was a good way to sell a pay-per-view, a good show, a fun show with a lot of cool stuff. And Mick Foley. But basically, that's all I have to say about that one. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.